The following podcast is brought to you by Pro Wrestling Connect, Australia's newest choice for event management and brand development specializing in pro wrestling.
And now, the B Plus Wrestling Podcast. Watch global. Support local. It's the B Plus Wrestling Podcast.
The moves.
B plus.
All rise, ladies and gentlemen. Wrestle Church is in session. It is me, it is I, the one they call Mr. Mysterious, and welcome to All the Rest, the wrestling podcast where we go through all the wrestling news throughout the world in this wacky, weird place that we call professional wrestling. Very big changes in the wrestling landscape this week. Not gonna lie, very hard to condense it all, but I did my best and get you guys up to date on everything that you need to know going forward in this weird landscape that professional wrestling is in at the moment. We're going to be covering a little bit of MLW news, bit of AEW, bit of NWA, WWE news, anything else that's come across my desk that you need to know about because you need to be in the know about what happens in the world of professional wrestling. And with B+, we've got your back. Before I get started, of course, birthday news. Where would we be without birthday news? For June 30th, the end of the financial year here, got a few very interesting birthdays here. So a happy 33rd birthday to Alicia Fox. Happy birthday to her. Turning 34. You know him, you love him. Former Ring of Honor World Champion, NWA World Champion, current AEW Executive Vice President, Cody Rhodes. Big happy birthday to him. Turning 35 on the 30th. Say yeah to Scott Dawson, one half of the Raw Tag Team Champions. Big congratulations to him. And to Terry Funk. He turned 75 today. Still going strong. Still hasn't retired from wrestling. I think he's probably taking a break now, but he's a crazy bastard, old Terry. As always, we're going to be covering a little bit of MLW news to kick things off, starting with episode 63 of MLW, main evented by an unsanctioned tornado tag match between Tom Lawler, the Von Erichs, and the Contra Unit. I'll let you guys know off the bat, I'm not usually a fan of unsanctioned matches, purely because when they're promoted as such, they're not unsanctioned. Unsanctioned means that nobody in the management team wants this. That's what a lot of promotions don't get, or they just choose to ignore it, like, it doesn't matter, it sounds cool. But of all the promotions that have done quote-unquote unsanctioned matches, this was the first one that actually felt like an unsanctioned match, which is a very rare thing to say. So MLW have kicked things off with a bang with this episode, a great follow-up to last week's Match of the Year candidate Falls Count Anywhere match between Sami Callihan and Mance Warner. Excellent. Cannot praise it enough. And yeah, we're in a great direction. MLW is continuing to impress. They're just quietly stacking up those gains. And we started off with a memorial, if you will. You had Selena and Jimmy Havoc. He looks weird as an Undertaker. He's just I've never thought of it like just we're having a funeral, but not for any one person specifically. It's more for the career of Sami Callihan in Major League Wrestling, because in MLW's eyes, or in maybe Jim Cornette's eyes, he is dead to the company for the time being. So he opened with Selena and Jimmy Havoc giving some solemn words to Sami's career, saying that he was a boil on the arse of MLW, and thanks to Selena, he's been lanced. And they closed. They just cackling with maniacal laughter. What a way to start. Like, Selena is ruthless. Ladies and gentlemen, it's hard to describe. Like, she is just unrelenting in when you piss her off. She's just, holds a grudge. Very much looking forward to what the various feuds that Promociones has with a lot of the members of the roster, because a few people are ticked off with them. But we will start. So we had This episode was very chaotic, very all over the place. Some good ways, some bad ways. I'll start with we were meant to have anyways. Teddy Hart versus Richard Holiday. So this was a match that was scheduled. MJF and Aria Blake, they first came out to go on commentary. They're bigging up Richard Holiday. They're putting down the Hart Foundation as they do. Teddy Hart comes out. He sees MJF just running his mouth. Gets up in MJF's face. And they linger on this spot for a while. And MJF was actually even hiding behind Jim Cornette, which was just like, you sniveling little heel you. But yeah, Cornette and Bacini, they kind of scurried away, and out of nowhere, Richard Holiday attacks Hart from behind, and you think the match is going to start. I think he's going to roll him into the ring, but no. They just brawl outside near the announce table. The Dynasty members put the boots to Hart, and they steal... This is where I get confused. It looked like they stole his tag team championship, but it could have been the middleweight. I love the MLW belts, but it's really hard to distinguish between them unless you really look at them. I feel like it was his tag team belt. I could be wrong, though. But yeah, they scurried off with the tag team title or the middleweight title. I'll flip a coin later and just really inspect it. But the main point is that match did not happen. And we had cut to a promo where old Mansour is thinking and drinking after defeating Sami Callihan. So he's near a sewer river, drinking his light beers. He's a deep thinker, that one. He's a simple man, and he is going to be targeting all of Selena's jackasses. Martinez, Hijo de LA Park, Fat Man Los Angeles Park, like that. Mansour, I love you. And Jimmy Havoc. So Jimmy Havoc is, in Mansour's eyes as well, officially a part of Promociones. Maybe just so that he can have a match with Mance Warner. Jimmy Havoc versus Mance Warner. Hardcore match. Love it. Love it. Yeah, Warner poetically described his plan of action with imagery involving severed heads on pikes, baseballs, and a barbecue. Just... He's thinking and drinking, folks. It's a very interesting time. The next match. So this was a... commentary explained this as they always have a match on standby if something were to happen. And it just so happens they did. So we started off with Isaias Velasquez going up against Jordan Oliver. Now, Jordan Oliver was part of the Second Battle Riot. He was one of their new signings. He is they call him the Source God, whatever that means. And apparently someone told him to watch out for crooked refs. Who could that be, I wonder? So throughout this match, very impressive. Like I look at Jordan Oliver, and I'm sorry, like Aussie fans will get this. He looks like Mitch Waterman. He looks like a younger, more scrawny version of Mitch Waterman. Can't get it out of my head. Still enjoyed his match. But yeah, this very solid, entertaining thing. And in the background, so as I'm alluding to, Myron Reed and Rich Swann, they've had their issues with MLW and saying that they have been picked on, abused by the referees to make up for their own shortcomings. And all throughout this match, so you could see it in the background, like commentary kind of briefly noted it, but Myron Reed was in the background of the match, like in the crowd, protesting. Like he's got the tape over his mouth still, like he's got his justice sign, picket sign. That like he was going back and forth, very subtle. I actually really enjoyed this. So they mentioned it, they alluded to it, but they didn't actually say like oh, there's him right there, and just like yeah. But it was a very fast-paced match, pretty nifty finish. So Oliver executed a stunner by leaping from the apron over the ropes back into the ring. He followed it up with a big jumping cutter. He's a lanky dude, but he pulled off that stunner really well, like from the middle turnbuckle. He probably got some pointers from Myron Reed, who also does a phenomenal leaping cutter, which he should do more of. But yeah, that was the quick match to open up MLW. Next match, Loki versus Tom Coffey. And this was one of the quickest matches on the card, I think, in MLW history, because from the moment the bell rung, Loki charged with a running elbow forearm smash, One hit, dead. Tom Coffey was knocked out. Referee called for the bell by TKO, the winner, the professional Loki. Afterwards, backstage, Loki cut a promo saying that he's creating history in MLW, but Contra really knows how to do things correctly as headhunters. Like, so he's I like this. I really like this. So he's leaving the issues with Promociones away for the moment. So he's focusing on the guys that attacked him, Contra. And, Loki versus Jacob Fatu. That's going to be, I cannot wait for that. But it shows how much MLW has faith in Contra. But yeah, he's saying Contra opened the Pandora's box by attacking the professional, and now they're in his sights. And just like, cannot wait. I love when Loki is on a mission. He's just a phenomenal athlete. Contra cut a promo about Tom Lawler in the main event. Jacob Fatu told Lawler to call Mexico to ask Phoenix how it felt to have rotting facial flesh from his fireball. And yeah, they're just bigging themselves up. And apparently tonight, the world will witness a massacre in Milwaukee. And we started. So this, like I said, of all the unsanctioned matches I've seen, this felt immediately like an unsanctioned match. So you had Contra come out first, and Tom Lawler's music hit, but he came through the crowd behind Contra's back, started attacking them, closely flanked by the Von Erichs, and this was just a heavy brawl, big furious. This was chaos. This was nuts, and like I kind of gave up trying to make sense of what happened. And like, again, we're letting the F-bombs fly here. I don't know if it's just for specific situations or MLW are just really embracing they're making it seem like a sports-centric thing, and like athletes, wrestlers, like they don't mince their words. Like it's hard to tell them not to swear and to cuss and everything else. Some handle it well, but some don't, and they're just like, but no, a lot of flirkins and just a lot of F-bombs. It's like, it was just, all over the place. Like, there was a lot of highlights, including Tom Lawler jumping off the turnbuckle onto Fatu's back for a rear naked choke, the dreaded chokehold. And you can tell they're really bigging up Jacob Fatu because he could kind of move around with Tom Lawler on his back. Even though he didn't break the hold, like I think it was Simon Gotcha broke the hold for him. But yeah, and for those of you wondering, because I've been picking up the Von Erichs, how did they do? They crushed it. I mean, they had the right balance of new, innovative offense mixed in with the legacy. They brought out the Von Erich claws. Both of them did the Von Erich claws. It was silly. It didn't feel misplaced, which I was worried that it would, seeing that happen. But it just all seemed to work. All the chaos made everything work. It's like Lawler's arm was duct taped to the ring post at one stage. A second referee had to come out with a knife to cut him free. The ref actually helped. That's very bizarre. But this was an unsanctioned match. Like, everything was very bizarre. Lawler attacked the other two Contra members. Marshall locked in the Iron Claw on Gotch. Ross came from behind for a belly-to-back suplex, while the Iron Claw was still locked in. 1, 2, 3. And this was the only, and you can tell this is an unsanctioned match because one pinfall attempt throughout the entire thing, and the Von Erichs and Tom Lawler beat Contra. But it didn't feel like they won, but at the same time it didn't matter because the match wasn't over. The fight didn't stop despite the bell continuously ringing. Like, they beat up the officials. They beat up the the announcer. I love Timothy Barr. I haven't said this enough, but for the past few months, Timothy Barr is my favorite announcer, like in-ring announcer. The guy is such, I believe he's a game show host. I believe he has such an incredible voice, like, introducing for the championship. He has got it all. He's a very talented man. But yeah, the brawling kept going, and I laugh because the Rich Bikini and Jim Cornette, they're trying to big up Contra, saying like, they're not even a part of the roster, they're savages, and da-da-da. why is Jacob Fatu in a match with Tom Lawler next week for the world title? Like that makes no sense. Oh, not for Fight for the Coliseum, I should say. When that comes out with the tapings, we'll have to see. But yeah, a lot of last minute attacks. Contra, they walked off in a fit of rage. They weren't done with half the shit they did. Like there was Fatu delivered a few super kicks. He did his BME, his best moonsault ever. Yeah, I loved it. This was a barrel of laughs all the way through. You had like some knockouts. You had some great debuts. Could not complain. Very happy with this episode of MLW. And moving forward, yeah, you guys should be excited. 1 hour, free on YouTube. Get on it, guys. You know you want to if you listen to me. We'll go into some All Elite Wrestling news as always. We have episode 158 of Being the Elite Control Room. We're open with Christopher Daniels and Britt Baker. So he asks Britt Baker to actually help out do a SCU promo. She rejects him, saying that she hasn't quite forgiven him for the stuff that happened with Adam Cole, baby. And saying like, oh, no, I'm not mad, but I got a present for you. And just hold out your hand. And like, yeah, Daniel should have not have fallen for this, but yeah. Open your hand. He closes it on something. What is it? It's warm. It's like pulsing with energy. I'd say it's like a battery, but it's meaty. He's holding onto Joey Ryan's penis. And Joey Ryan does the penis plex. And all throughout this episode, they do the Family Guy Peter Griffin skit where Daniels is on the floor just going, It was beautifully timed. Very corny. Loved it. You've got Kenny Omega is flipping his shit, trying to organize Fighter Fest, which is happening. It should be out by the time this episode is released, guys. He's just like trying to call celebrities. They're canceling on him. Like he's just like everything is not going his way. Essentially, MJF has got a new butler. Apparently, he enlisted him to go find the most redneck of rednecks to practice in his match against Adam Page. And I don't know who this guy was, but I'm sure he was probably a wrestler. But yeah, he's just like, dude, I like horses. He's just like this most cliche guy. I love that MJF he's getting ready, but just like, Hangman Page has a bum leg, and the butler's like, no problem, sir. And he just casually whacks this guy in the leg with a steel chair so that MJF, it's a true representation of Hangman Page. MJF, you are a delight in the world of professional wrestling. More people should know about you, and if he had his way, they probably would. You have Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy. They have their own skits. The referee's telling him to not have Jungle Boy on top of his shoulders in a car. But you can't question Luchasaurus. Why? Because he has a master's degree. That's why. You have the whole Peter Avalon is still crushing over Lena Bates. Yeah. You have John Moxley. Like, we're hyping up to, obviously, Fyter Fest. And we're alluding to Fight for the Fallen. So, in this, for Fight for the Fallen, as you know, the Young Bucks are going to be facing off against Cody and Dustin. And they're actually, like, making fun of Cody and Dustin for the big emotional moment at Double or Nothing. I need my older brother. I cried. I'm not ashamed to say it during that moment. And they're just like, emotions. Get out of here. So they're going to be the dicks in Fight for the Fallen, if it wasn't obvious by the tone. You had some mailbag questions. MJF is apparently contractually obligated to answer them. And yeah, very much looking forward to seeing what happens here. Like, so we're starting, and we've no more Road to Fyter Fest because we're only got a couple days left. It's now Road to Fight for the Fallen, and this is a big charity event. Talks about doing this in support of the victims of gun violence in the area around Fight for the Fallen. It's going to be a smaller show, obviously, but apparently it was near where Tony Khan resides. And yeah, it's a big, heartfelt speech. Like, I love that they take the time to actually talk about these issues. And yeah, they're highlighting for the future Brandy Rhodes. Like, she is training her ass off to eventually be a wrestler in the roster. But so she's going to be a highlight branding officer, I'm sure. But yeah, hopefully we'll see some more wrestling out of her. Maybe at All Out. I feel like she's building up to All Out. Maybe not Fight for the Fallen. Hangman Page apparently saw MJF's little skit with the redneck and just saying that, oh, my knee is healed up now. Like, you got to be ready for me. And then it was a bunch of legends like Jake the Snake and but a lot of guys like bigging up like this match between the Young Bucks, Cody and Dustin. Very much like Tony Schiavone, interestingly enough. So the fact that Tony Schiavone is appearing on AEW, I know he's going back to MLW soon. Maybe he can do both. I would love to see him in the commentator's booth alongside Excalibur and Jim Ross. Like, perfect commentary team it would be. I can say that. But that's like pretty much it for the AEW news. Of course, we've got some more during the later half of our podcast here. But that's the YouTube series is rundown. And we have some rundowns of the NWA. So we don't have a 10 pounds of gold, but we have a update. So Best in the World, Ring of Honor's latest event has happened at the time of recording. And I'll talk about that later as well. But there was a video release. Colt Cabana, unfortunately, had to rest his knee. So he had to not vacate the belt, fortunately, but he had to take some time off. So he was not able to compete in the match with Nick Aldis facing off against the Briscoes. And Nick Aldis released a video the very next day saying his partner is the latest signing to the NWA. So I will reveal to you all who that signing was after you listen to Greg with our sponsors.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
This month we are sponsored by Grapple, a fantastic new wrestling app available on iOS and Google Play completely for free, where you can rate all the matches that you watch in WWE, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all across the world, and we are even getting Australian wrestling involved in the Grapple app rating system as well, starting with PWA Pro Wrestling Australia. Their Green Label event from the other week is up there. The Black Label event, All Eyes on Troy, is up there. And the last 2 years of events, at least, are up on Grapple right now for you to rate so that people can get around our Aussie wrestling and see that we are just as good as anywhere else in the world. Basically, Grapple is a Rotten Tomatoes for wrestling. Now we all get a say. It is the democratization of match rating systems for pro wrestling. It's amazing. So I get a say, you get a say. You can follow me on there at Greg Unchained. You can follow Big Boy Mikey at B+_Big Boy. At Mr. Mysterious is on there. At Danders is on there. At Jay is on there. We're all on there rating the matches that we watch. So follow us. We'll follow you back. Let's build this community and get as many Australian wrestling fans onto the Grapple app as we can. You can download it right now. It has over 30,000 matches on there going back to 1985, 15 promotions around the world. There's so much to do on the Grapple app. It's a great little community, so get around it. It's Grapple, GRAPPL.co, and it's for free on App Store and Google Play. Get around it. Hey everyone, just want to take a second to tell you about one of our new sponsors, Outbreak Nutrition. Outbreak Nutrition are creating supplements for survival, sharper minds, quicker reflexes, all the energy you need to take your performance to the next level, whether that be on the field, in the gym, on the gaming field. That's right, they have specifically designed gaming supplements as well to help you focus on those late night sessions. They even sell coffee, you guys, at Outbreak Nutrition. You can get coffee pods, you can get coffee beans, you can get supplements for the bedroom as well if you want to enhance your performance there. These are performance enhancing supplements for every aspect of your life, specifically designed by gamers, for gamers, to stay fit and healthy in the gym, to stay sharp and focused on the game, and to dominate in all areas of life. So check out OutbreakNutrition.com, and for being a listener of our podcast, they will give you 10% off your order when you enter the code B+. That is BPLUS at checkout. So make sure, if you want to stay on top of your game, if you want to take your performance to the next level, OutbreakNutrition.com, enter the code B+ at checkout. Hey guys, just a reminder, if you want to hear all of these wonderful B Plus podcast episodes completely ad-free, make sure you head over to Patreon or Podbean, where we are the featured podcast this week. You can subscribe for as little as $1 a month up to $10 a month, where anything you want to help us with, it really helps out. It's going to help us grow the site. It's going to help us redesign some things, and everything that we get through this and through the advertising as well is all going straight back into the podcast so that we can get Aussie Graps out there for the rest of the world to hear about, for the rest of the world to see, so we can grow this mission of watch global, support local, and build indie wrestling. So if you want to be a part of that and get some really cool rewards like call-in shows, bonus episodes, ad-free like I mentioned, then head over to patreon.com/theb+ and subscribe today.
All right, guys, we are back with the second half of All the Rest. We can go through the signings, who's injured, who's not, who's leaving, who wants to leave, who's just fed up with this situation, and who's just excited for some more wrestling. I know I am. So let's get started with the big signings throughout the world today. Big signing for WWE, of course. They've been last week, of course, the big signing of Mojo Rawley, essential talent to the rosters of WWE. They have upped the ante with re-signing a former WWE champion, a former United States champion, a former 24/7 champion. You cannot hinder the Jinder. Jinder Mahal has been re-signed to WWE. I joke, but it's great for him. He's going to continue feeding his family. He's probably making a lot more money with this whole flux that AEW has brought on the WWE roster, saying lock everyone down. I'll be talking about him in a second as well, Jinder. But as I talk to you guys, as I reveal to you all, there's a new signing in the land of the NWA, and it was Nick Aldis's tag team partner facing off against the Briscoes. And this man likes to say,
Dummy, yeah, yeah, dummy, yeah, yeah, dummy, yeah, yeah.
and his name is Eli Drake, ladies and gentlemen. He has officially signed with the NWA Ring of Honor. I am very excited. I will talk about him a bit more tomorrow because he had a big interview with Chris Van Vliet, talking about his exit from Impact Wrestling, talking about his time, why he left, his history with the company. I'll be able to run you guys through all that during the Impact Zone tomorrow. But yeah, very excited for Eli Drake to join the NWA ranks because he is of essential talent, and he is going to be one of the hottest. Like, he was one of the hottest free agents around. Very much looking forward to what the NWA has in store for him. A signing for MLW. You have, I believe his name is Shinron, former Shikara star. He's been wrestling in South Africa or South America around that part for the better part of a year and a half now. And another luchador, very amazing talent. Yeah. MLW just knows where to find all the luchadors. Like, they just have such a keen eye for talent across the globe. Of course, they're bringing in some other talent that aren't luchadors. They bring in some hot 8 free agents like Austin Aries. You have Adam Brooks, who's going to be making his debut very soon, I hope. We haven't seen the taping just yet, but very much looking forward to some Aussie pride in the land of MLW. So that's all the signings. Injuries. I mentioned this man, Jinder Mahal. This is fresh off the press, guys. You're hearing this first. So Jinder Mahal has apparently suffered a ruptured patella, and he's going to be out of action for 4 to 6 months. So he's lucky that he has re-signed with WWE. So I'm sure, like, if they're not going to be doing anything with him right now, I mean, the Singh brothers are doing their own thing on 205 Live. He's kind of just been in the 24/7 title picture, not even having matches, just doing his own thing. Yeah. Wish him a speedy recovery. I laugh, but Jinder Mahal, wish you all the best. Some updates. So we weren't sure if this was an official injury or not last week, but Kyle O'Reilly, apparently his stitches from the TakeOver event, they may have given him a staph infection. Nothing serious. He just needs to take a couple weeks off, and unfortunately, that is why he had to pull out from Evolve 129 and 130. And as I mentioned earlier, Colt Cabana is out with a knee injury. He just needs to take a few weeks off, and he'll be back in action. your NWA National Champion, Colt Boom Boom Cabana. No people leaving their contracts just yet. You have big Brock Lesnar, Brock Boomblocks Lesnar. It's been revealed that his contract is up in WWE around May, June 2020. So you know that around that time, if anything happens, you'll know that he has definitely left the company or he's got an extension to his contract. In this trying times with WWE, like we thought that he'd leave at WrestleMania 35 and then boom, he's got a new contract. Or we thought he'd finish with Roman and he defeated Roman Reigns and boom, his contract had been extended. So we'll see. He's an interesting one. Big Brock Lesnar, Suplex City and all that. Another person who might be thinking about leaving, Rusev. So in the midst of WWE offering lengthy, costly deals to any and all talent, whether they're using them or not, Rusev's contract is set to expire in the near future. We don't exactly know when it will run out, but Rusev has been long unhappy in the land of WWE. Regularly, like if you look at his social media, it's not poor me, bitter, da-da-da, but you can tell that he's just not happy about his position. He's not happy about his wife's position in the company. He's off TV right now by his own request. So he's taking some time off, just like, look, if you're not going to use me, I'm kind of fed up with this at the moment. Just give me some time off. And if I come back and I agree to re-sign, then you need to do something with me because he is a monster. Rusev Day will have its due, ladies and gentlemen. I'm seen to be the only person. I mentioned this yesterday. I was part of the NXT podcast with Greg Unchained. I'm still pushing Rusev Day. And when he comes back, ladies and gentlemen, mark my words, even if it's not in WWE and he chooses to resign with them, Rusev Day will be in full force in another promotion. I very much look forward to it. Kicking off the big landscape news in the world of professional wrestling. Let's just kick it off with the big WWE news. We have new executive directors for Raw and SmackDown. It's not Triple H. It's not Stephanie McMahon. It's not Shane McMahon. The new frontrunners for Raw and SmackDown, Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff. This hit everyone out of nowhere. So Sports Illustrated broke the news, the big backstage news outside of WWE. They, of course, confirmed it later. But yeah, so Paul Heyman is in charge of Raw. Eric Bischoff is in charge of SmackDown. Both men will report directly to Vince McMahon, with Bischoff also working directly with executives from Fox when SmackDown begins airing there in October. So according to the WWE release, both Heyman and Bischoff will oversee the creative development of WWE's flagship programming and ensure integration across all platforms and lines of business. What that essentially sounds like to my ears, and what it should mean, is that they're given the same amount of power as Triple H with NXT. That is the idea of this. That's what the idea of the announcement is. And this is a purely legitimate behind-the-scenes announcement. They're not going to appear as authority figures on Raw and SmackDown, although that you have Paul Heyman, but he's the advocate, of course, of Brock Lesnar. That's just a separate thing. This hit everyone out of nowhere, ladies and gentlemen, and it goes to show how drastic times call for drastic measures. Now, I would have, if it were up to me personally, I would have preferred to have had Paul Heyman on the SmackDown side because he was, of course, the general manager during the big times of the Attitude Era. After the Attitude Era, the SmackDown 6 were in full swing. They just kicked things off, and it was a great time. I love those times growing up watching SmackDown. But yeah, this is huge. There are rumors that Triple H was offered that role, but he turned it down. But it's a bit hit and miss. It doesn't seem like he was actually even in the running for being offered this position, which it sounds like Vince McMahon may be out of spite. But I'm actually glad because Vince McMahon does not want to just leave his baby NXT out high and dry and they have no one to look after it. I mean, of course he has his friends in the clique, but he's overseeing everything else with NXT, so that's totally fine. I'm happy with that. This is huge. This is WWE's plan to, and for those of you wondering why Vince McMahon would actually seek out Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff, the rumor is, according to Wrestling Observer and other various sources, is that he believes that All Elite Wrestling would have actually grabbed up Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff. I can see maybe Paul Heyman, but I don't see them getting Bischoff, because Bischoff has been out of the loop with wrestling for a little while now, and it kind of shows how out of touch Vince McMahon is, because the fact that both men will actually need to be caught up to speed with the wrestling world, and it's a slow transition. This is not an immediate thing, ladies and gentlemen. This is a smooth transition into their roles. Very much looking forward to what this means for Raw and SmackDown going forward, and I do have high hopes for this, but the big takeaway from this is the one sentence: they still have to report to Vince McMahon. I'm hoping that he just does not, is not petty and just shoots down all of their ideas. I'm hoping that this is a legitimate, Vince McMahon is trying to listen. He has trust and faith in these two people to do their best. I'm hoping this is a proper thing, but the fact that they still have to report directly to Vince kind of suggests that maybe, at the very least, they're going to try something different. That's the takeaway. So they're actually trying to do something about the low ratings and the bad attendance, because there has been a lot in the world of professional wrestling here. So not in the world of professional wrestling, in WWE, there's been some piss poor, record-breakingly poor attendance in WWE. So Stomping Grounds only had about 6,000 in attendance. They had to curtain off a lot of the stadium for the broadcast, and of those 6,000, only about 4,500 were paid tickets. Of course, there was a bunch of 2-for-1 deals that were offered in the build-up to Stomping Grounds. The following Raw, they had the past record was 8,000 people. That was their previous record low. The latest one, 3,500, and for the following SmackDown, 1,500. And for the following SmackDown, 1,500, which means that through 3 days of WWE programming, they had about 11,500 fans over the course of 3 days. This is a billion-dollar company, and this is alarming, to say the least. And the news of Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff couldn't have come at a better time, and it shows that maybe they're trying to answer that. So not only was Vince McMahon worried about them being signed, which, wouldn't have happened, but it makes sense to Paul Heyman, of course, because you have Brock Lesnar and Ronda Rousey. They're Paul Heyman guys, and they'll be very happy that their advocate is in this position. And also, just the fact that it's just a big Hail Mary. I'm hoping, and the idea, of course, especially with the SmackDown deal with Fox, that's going to be happening in the Staples Center in Los Angeles. That's where the Lakers actually play basketball. So the idea of that is that SmackDown and WWE want to kick things off with a bang and show that WWE is truly where all the stars should be, in the major leagues, quote unquote, and then everyone else, AEW, but everyone else in the minor leagues, which wholeheartedly disagree with, but that seems to be the idea going forward. We have a lot to talk about with that. I cannot imagine, I'm going to cut it down, but you guys should look into this more. Again, this is not an immediate thing. They'll slowly transition into it. But yeah, big congratulations to them. Big surprise, not only for the fans, but for backstage WWE personnel. So Eric Bischoff, he was in the same position in Impact Wrestling, and with Hulk Hogan and everything else, and ratings shat the bed. This is when Eric Bischoff and TNA and Dixie Carter tried to go to war with WWE, and they just flopped, horribly flopped. But I don't know, maybe Eric Bischoff has learned from that experience. Paul Heyman has learned more about his time with Brock Lesnar and his previous history with ECW. Man, like, I'm hoping that Raw and SmackDown have a different feel now that these two are at the helm, like, eventually at the helm. And one of their first rules, I'm hoping, get rid of the wild card rule. Their first edict, please get rid of the wild card rule. Another edict that I hope they like try and do, get rid of the no fighting during commercial breaks, because that is a recent thing that Vince McMahon has done. So for those of you wondering why there has been so many 2 out of 3 falls matches throughout this past couple of weeks, is that Vince McMahon has got it in his head that like professional fighting does not have fighting going on during the breaks. And like, that's true. But there's a difference between boxing and Muay Thai, UFC, and professional wrestling. And if you want to bleed the two together, that's fine. But the way they're doing this, like with 2 out of 3 falls matches, with like they're not hiding it well. Like matches turned into big 8, like tag team matches turned to 8-man tags or to 6-man tags, or to bickering between teammates that will be concluded right after the break. It's not a good thing, and it's going to get old real quick. And apparently, just Vince McMahon on a whim just decreed this without like consulting anybody. Apparently, he got it in his head. He's just a crazy one, that old Vince McMahon, and his decisions just on a whim do not impact WWE PR wise very well. Like another one of the decisions that they've done, this one I don't like. So Fight for the Fallen is coming out on July 13th, and this just happens to be the same day that Evolve's 10th anniversary will be streaming on the WWE network. And like for the longest time, like if this was any other day, this would be great, because it seemed like this man was going to eventually pull the trigger on Evolve or Progress or any of the other affiliated WWE promotions being a part of the network, but it just never happened. And then the perfect timing of it now is that they're doing it against Fight for the Fallen, which is bullshit, because this is a charity event. AEW are not trying to like build to anything. This isn't going to be like a big game changing. This is just to raise money for the victims of gun violence. In America, that's a big thing. Like, that's a big thing. And it's just sad. It's just sad for them to, like, they're bringing in a super soaker, like, fighting off a tank. Like, it's petty. It's, like, don't like it at all. And one of the people who didn't like it was Kenny Omega. So he let out a tweet, which he deleted as well. He said, if lining your pockets with blood money is okay, then what's wrong with trying to undermine a charity show for victims of gun violence? I hear that healthy competition is supposed to be a good thing, yet I can't help but feel like I'm gonna be sick. And he deleted that. Everyone was going nuts, and his other tweet was, I said my piece, and I opened the door to a very toxic environment. This is a very rare lapse in Kenny Omega's calm demeanor, but it begs the question, just how, like, what lows will WWE stoop to try and nip AEW in the butt? Because everything they seem to be doing is not working, and it just makes them come off as bitter. And this should be the rising tide lifts all boats. That's what it should be. But WWE, like, with their chaotic, like what they're infighting, and with like talent being unhappy, and like the way they've treated Sasha Banks and Leo Rush and Luke Harper, it just seems like an awful place. And like, change is a good thing. I'm hoping that Paul Heyman, Eric Bischoff, this change will lead to some people like saying some like big praises about the company, right? That don't seem like targeted marketing strategies or just dick measuring contests, because that seems to be all that WWE are doing. Not just like the corporate guys, not just Vince McMahon, Seth Rollins. Like, you had the whole Twitter feud with him and Will Ospreay talking about who is the best in the world, and like that that can go on and on. And Seth Rollins, like, he was saying stuff like take his ball and go home, like, which is like a trademark Vince McMahon promo saying. Like, everyone should be off, like, wrestlers should be off Twitter this week. That's what you should take from this week in the world of professional wrestling. Everyone should be off Twitter because they are just, there needs to be like a penalty box for them because no one has been a winner on Twitter this week. Like, no one, not Will Ospreay. Like, he beat Seth Rollins in the sense that he was the bigger man there, but he's releasing t-shirts about being called a little guy. He's following it up with just like, don't want the raw shit with everything else, and just like, you won, you should just shut up. Yeah, wrestlers, have a rest from Twitter this week. Like, just keep it away from everything else. But the fact that Evolve and Fight for the Fallen were on the same day, I'm kind of happy to report this. So for the longest time, it looked like AEW would have their TV show. It was always going to be Tuesday Night Dynamite. That was the trademark thing. It looks like they might be changing that to maybe Wednesday Night Dynamite, which could make sense because Tuesday with TNT, that's when they have a lot of their other sports programs on. I believe like the football and yeah, I think it's like the football and a couple other sports like that. But they don't want to go up against that and going up. And I think I mentioned that I touched on this last week as well. But that big deal, when they officially start up, that October week happens to coincide with SmackDown moving to Fox. That might be a response to them. Like, and of course, this isn't an official. This is reports from other outlets like Observer and everything else. But if that's true, like, it would make sense. And the big press, they'll have a press conference about it, just to say, like, what's happening. But I hope it's Wednesday Night Dynamite, just for the fact that you'll have Raw, take a break. All Elite Wrestling, take a break. SmackDown, weekend off unless it's a pay-per-view. And you have the tapings on the network for NXT, 205 Live, everything else. Just great. They're just like, rest for a wrestling fan. Like, we don't get enough of it. And it would be a wondrous thing, ladies and gentlemen. Let's move on to some other stories from around the world. I talk a lot about Vince McMahon and how much he's a crazy bastard, and I'm not done talking about him, but I'll talk about one of the other McMahons you don't really hear enough about, Linda. So Linda has been in the news because there was a big leak in the Trump administration. So I try and keep politics out of the podcast as much as I can, like Australian, American, everything else. I try and keep it out. But the reason I'm talking about this is because when people get sworn into office in America, they obviously get vetted. What is their character like? Are there anything that we should be worried about this person being elected into a position of power in government? And for Linda McMahon, the documents that for vetting her have been released in Elite. They have been released to the world. And it's really shown how ugly WWE's past has been. Like, no one seems to be talking about this, right? Like, but this is serious. So, to wrestling fans, these aren't groundbreaking things, but to the rest of the world, this should kind of raise some eyebrows as to what WWE has come from, right? Where, like, while like this is when Linda McMahon was actually the CEO of WWE before she actually gave her position over to Vince. So it brought up the dirty laundry. It's a big 13, 14-page manifesto, and some of it is redacted, which is like serious shit. They talked about the Chris Benoit murder-suicide, how was referenced brain injuries could be like work-related, of course, WWE. Talked about the steroid trial. It talks about Linda McMahon paying property taxes late several times back in the 80s. It talked apparently they took nearly $3 million in taxpayer subsidies for WWE while criticizing government bailouts, which big no-no. They talk about I mentioned the steroids. They talk about they openly acknowledge WWE denying wrestlers benefits and classifying them as independent contractors, right? it talks about a lot of dark shit, like especially even stuff that I don't even remember. Apparently, like in a 2004 segment, a wrestler attacked a man in drag while shouting that he was a F word, and the representation of Arab Americans, where they reference them sand people, which it shows where WWE has come from, like trying to be edgy in the Attitude Era, and before that in the 90s, like just the drugs and just the bad backstage shit. It's like it's Linda McMahon understandably has denied comments on the leaked document and to their validity, but it looks like the genuine article, if that means anything. And it just, yeah, she's going to want to stay away from everything for the time being. But yeah, you should seek it out. It's legitimate. It's a very interesting read. And despite all of this, despite this eventually coming out to the world, they still elected her into office in the small administration department with Donald Trump's cabinet. It's just a bad time for WWE all around, to be honest. And yeah, Linda McMahon, I didn't like. She seemed to be like the sole sane member of the McMahon family. Like, we talk about how crazy Vince is, Stephanie, Shane, with being probably the next WWE champion. But we don't talk about Linda enough. And I don't think I want to, personally, if this is the stories that are going to be coming out in the land of professional wrestling. But what can you do, ladies and gentlemen? What can you do? Some other sad news about wrestlers, like some lawsuits and leaks and everything else. CM Punk is back in the news this week. Not for potentially returning to wrestling like people have always talked about and wanted and everything else, and just like, you got to stop. You got to stop, ladies and gentlemen. But the reason he's in the news is not for a good thing. So Colt Cabana is now out with a knee injury, but he tried to sue CM Punk for legal fees. Like, so for those of you who don't know the story, like, I'll try and give the cliff notes where WWE tried to sue CM Punk and Colt Cabana for their big podcast where CM Punk aired all his dirty laundry about them misdiagnosing him for his staph infection, firing him on his wedding day, all the bad shit backstage with Triple H, with Vince McMahon, and just, yeah, he aired everything out, and WWE tried to sue him. Like, CM Punk and Colt Cabana won that court case, but they lost a ton of legal fees doing it. And CM Punk then no longer covered Colt Cabana's legal fees, and Colt Cabana tried to sue him for $200,000 to reclaim that, saying that CM Punk meant to do that. He promised him that he'd look after him, right? We don't know the whole story, and now CM Punk's retort to this, he is offered a countersuit of $600,000 plus interest for Colt Cabana even daring to do this lawsuit. And like, Colt Cabana is a very successful independent wrestler, but he does not have $600,000 lying around, ladies and gentlemen. That is just very, like, I love CM Punk. I love CM Punk. I love Colt Cabana, but it sucks that this whole lawsuit has actually demolished their friendship, and I hope that they find a understanding that doesn't end in one of them being financially broke or destitute or like anything else. But it's just, and it's kind of hard because you want both men to be happy, and it seems like Colt Cabana is this nice, affable guy, and CM Punk has come off kind of bitter since he's left WWE. But you don't know the situation, and like I said, it sucks because I'm a fan of both, and I just want there to be a nice, happy ending to the story if there is one. But life doesn't give you happy endings sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, and that's just a sad fact of life. We have some other stories coming out of the world. So I mentioned Villain Enterprises a couple weeks ago. They're still looking for their fourth member, but at Best of the World, they found one. They found one in Flip Gordon. Now, of course, Greg Unchained will probably cover this more in Kings of Sports, but yeah, it looked like maybe Mitch Moretti here in WCW World Series Wrestling would be the next member. But Flip Gordon, it looked like he looked pegged to be joining Lifeblood, and he was going to put on a Lifeblood shirt, but nope. Big Swerve, fourth member of Villain Enterprises. Very much looking forward to what happens there. So Best in the World really pulled off some big swerves, of course, with Eli Drake and Flip Gordon. Very happy about that. Some big mental health awareness news, guys, because even wrestlers, they like life of a professional wrestler can be a very lonely thing, and especially in the independent scene, like just like the hours, especially in WWE, the hours and the work schedule and the training and like constantly being on the road, like lack of sleep, lack of great physical therapy, all of that. And some wrestlers have actually opened up about their mental health. Of course, the man formerly known as Big Cass actually talked on DDP's YouTube channel, of course, promoting DDP yoga and all that. But he opened up about his alcoholism and his mental health, saying he was not in a great place. WWE had every right to fire him. Very rare peek behind the curtain of Kaz XL, whatever he's calling himself now. Like you're kind of like sick of hearing about Enzo and Cass, but now like just seeing that behind the curtain, just like there's a man underneath all the facade of just douchebaggery there. And another person who's actually revealed his mental health, like his at some point his how bad his mental health got. Tommy Dreamer, ECW original, innovator of violence, promoter of House of Hardcore, backstage person in Impact Wrestling, attempted murderer. What happened was, so there was a time in between Tommy Dreamer's debut, ECW and ECW inevitably folding, closing down, where Tommy Dreamer was in a really bad place. He was financially not in a good place. He was meant to be coming into WWE. He was meant to be a part of that big, amazing TLC, that big 6-man ladder match at WrestleMania 17. Of course, that was replaced by like the Dudleys and Edge and Christian and the Hardys. Like when you look at ladder matches from history, like one of the greatest like TLC ladder matches of all time. Like it's still to this day, it was one of the best that you've ever seen. But he was meant to be a part of that, and because he got scrapped from that, he was under the impression that he was no longer a part of. He no longer would be moving on to WWE. And during that time, he got into a dark place, and he actually openly admitted that with Paul Heyman seemingly going okay in WWE as a commentator, that moving over and having all these flaws and ECW closing down and everything else, he planned to take advantage of America's gun laws, extremely light gun laws. I'm not a big fan of the guns over there. But yeah, he's saying he was going to take advantage of that and shoot Paul Heyman dead and then himself. That is some heavy shit that he revealed this on his House of Hardcore podcast. It goes to show you how low people can get and how like all these factors can kind of pile up. And it shows like, I don't know how far he was going to go. Like he even said that he wasn't even sure how far he was going to go with this plan, but he was really thinking hard about taking out some frustration against Paul Heyman. And that's some big shit. And of course, like that didn't happen. Jim Ross, thankfully, told him like, no, you're still hired. We're just, we're easing you into it. And of course, he debuted not long after, like 3 months after WrestleMania 17 as part of the Alliance, the big alliance there with ECW and WCW. Like, it all comes around, ladies and gentlemen. It all comes around in this weird world of professional wrestling. But yeah, very brutal, honest revelation on the part of Tommy Dreamer. And like, if you are feeling depressed, like we talked about this last week with Lionheart passing away and just like the state of like especially wrestlers as well. Like, but it's okay to say you're not okay, and it's okay to actually seek help, and it's okay to express how you're feeling and your emotions, and no one should keep these feelings bottled up. They should be able to talk to someone. Like, someone wants to listen to your problems, like someone, and you should actively try and make a situation better. Like, I'm rambling, but I'm like, there is help out there. People do actively want to help you. As bad as things get, there is always like someone out there who wants to help you get back on your feet and help you live your life, because that's what it should be about. We have a couple other news stories, guys, before I'm off. Didn't want to end on a sour note, so I'm going to talk about how weird Vince McMahon is. Like, so I mentioned this in a negative way, but let's talk about it in a positive way, because at B+, we like to be positive, and I need to remind myself more to be positive. R-Truth, there's apparently, according to Backstage, he seems to could have a WWE job for life. And for those of you wondering why he's being pushed heavily as the 24/7 champion, so he is an 8-time, at the time of recording, 8-time 24/7 champion. The reason for that, the reason why Vince McMahon loves him, is because he never says no to his ideas. It sounds so simple, but if you think about it, R-Truth, he's had so many comedy bits throughout his entire run with WWE, and he does not, like, he enables Vince McMahon. He's one of the few people you'll hear about John Moxley and like how Vince McMahon wanted him to come out, like Dean Ambrose to come out with a wagon. Like, there was a pooper scooper line from a writer. Like, they wanted him just to do this weird prop comedy, the stuff with the doctor and the syringe and like all of that. When's the last time, like, you cannot imagine R-Truth saying like no to half the crazy shit that Vince McMahon thinks of, and because of that, because he actually indulges the maniacal craziness that is Vince McMahon, like, he seems to have a job for life if he wants it. And yeah, like, but he makes it work. Like, who would have thought that in 2019, at nearly 50 years old, R-Truth would be one of the hottest champions in all of professional wrestling? And speaking of hottest, I'll end on this, guys. So for those of you wondering, like, that's why Vince McMahon loves R-Truth so. But if you're wondering why he loves Baron Corbin so because Baron Corbin has massive go-away heat right now, and he's just in the title picture for Universal title for Extreme Rules, alongside Lacey Evans against Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins. Like, of course, you listen to our View from WWE Universe and CJ Lonely Fan, you would get up to date about all of that, which you should. But the reason you're thinking, why does Vince McMahon constantly push Baron Corbin? It's not because of his ability. It's not because of his work rate or anything else. It's because he thinks the ladies love him. So this is a report from The Observer. Apparently, Vince McMahon thinks that the ladies fall head over heels for someone like Baron Corbin, the guy with the receding hairline. Look, let's not judge. There are probably some ladies, like, everyone's tastes are different. But man, it's not for anything that he does in the ring. It's not for his skills on the mic or his wrestling ability. No, it's because Vince McMahon thinks Baron Corbin is a sexy boy. And that's where we're going to leave things for right now, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to follow me, I am at Mr. Mysterious on all the socials with the 1 and 7i. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Grapple. Hit me up. We'll have a chat about Vince McMahon and just the weird the seismic shift that has happened with Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff. I need to talk to someone about this because it's huge news, guys. If you want to follow us here collectively at the B+, because we're a great bunch, you can follow us at the B+ Wrestling on Twitter because wrestling wouldn't fit, and the B+ Wrestling everywhere else. Remember, guys, about our Patreon. Any amount you could donate would be greatly appreciated so we can keep giving you guys what you want, when you want, showcasing the best of Australian wrestling and keeping you up to date on all the wrestling around the world. Like, share, subscribe, hit that 5-star review. I've been Mr. Mysterious, and I'll see you later.